Fundamentals of Prepping, Part 6, Transportation. Hey guys, welcome back. Matt from BAAM Ranch. Good to have you here. So this is, like I said, Part 6 in our series on the fundamentals of prepping, which that is, shelter, food and water, safety, security, financial stability, and finally this one, transportation. And yeah, we're talking about our bug out vehicles, our 6x6 bulletproof, all-terrain, runs off of anything in the world, jacked up, turret mounted machine guns, that thing that we've all got, right? None of us have that. Or if you have that and you're watching me, we've got some priorities mixed up somewhere. But anyway, transportation and how it relates to preparedness, and as stated in many of my videos, we're not just talking about preparing for the end of the world, but just general everyday life as well. It doesn't do us any good to be prepared for the end of the world if we can't even make it through, normal week. Remember, doomsday may never happen, but Tuesday happens every week. For most of us, our bug out vehicle is going to be the normal vehicle that we use to get to work every single day. If you're a 2-vehicle family, then you've got 2 bug out vehicles. What's most likely going to happen if we got a bolt somewhere is we're going to throw the wife and kids in her Buick, and we're going to jump in my 25-year-old truck, I'm going to jump in my 25-year-old truck, and we're going to take both of them and scoot on down the road. So keep that in mind. Transportation, it's what gets us to our job. It's what gets us to the grocery store. It's what allows us to do life. So don't get so hyper focused on the bug out, ultimate survival stuff. Yes, that stuff's important, but reliable transportation that can actually get you back and forth to work every day, to get you a paycheck so that you can afford your shelter, your food and water, your safety, security, financial stability, and once again, afford reliable transportation. All of these things kind of tie back into each other. Let's look at it from a little bit of a preparedness standpoint. What do you need? Well, if you can't jump in a vehicle today that you have and make an unplanned 2,000-mile road trip, and the reliability of that vehicle be questionable, you need to start looking at, how can you remedy that situation? Let me move this light a little bit. I would probably say that's what would be my minimum for what would qualify as reliable transportation. Can you jump in it on a moment's notice and make it 2,000 miles and not worry about the reliability of the vehicle? Now, obviously, things happen, normal maintenance stuff, things wear out. That's expected, But if it does happen, can you fix it? That doesn't mean you have to fix it. If you've got the money and your time is, your money is worth less than your time, and you want to pay somebody else to do that, that's great. Awesome. I'm glad, good on you for being successful. But nonetheless, having the skills to be able to do so, and I'm not talking about rebuilding transmissions and replacing engines, but do you have the ability to be able to replace an alternator, a starter, a belt, a water pump, change brakes, these normal, somewhat minor repairs that happen on all vehicles. If you keep one for any amount of time at all, you're going to have some component wear out. And can you do the basic repairs? It's not that hard to do. And if it's not something you're familiar with, everybody talks about new vehicles are so hard to work on. I don't know what they're talking about, because, I spent several years of my life as a professional mechanic, and they're really not. There's not anything different about replacing a alternator on a, 2022 brand new vehicle than there is, something made in, 1973. There may be access issues and it may be a little bit tighter spaces, but it's still just all hell on with nuts and bolts. So being able to have at least a limited functional ability to be able to repair it whenever it finally does break is something you need to get familiar with. What about the things that should stay in your vehicle at all times? Well, once again, that's going to depend a little bit on your vehicle. Let's first discuss tools. Flat tires are a pretty common thing. So, some way to air up those tires. And does that mean, spend $1,000 on some onboard air system? Well, possibly. I don't know. Will the $12, cigarette lighter pump from Harbor Freight work? Yeah, it'll work just fine. That's what's in my wife's car. And I don't expect it to last a long time. I expect it to air up a tire once. And if it dies after the third tire, I don't care. I'll go buy a new one. It's just to put some air back in that tire to get her down the road. Along with that comes, tire plugs. If you don't know how to use tire plugs, figure it out, look up some YouTube videos. Tires are really easy to plug. It's not necessarily a permanent repair, but it'll get you home and get you to the tire station. Throw a plug in that tire, put a shot of air in it with your, $20 cigarette lighter compressor, and continue on down the road. Basic tools. If you can replace an alternator or a starter in your car, and I'll go ahead and add a belt as well. If you can replace a serpentine belt, if you have the tools necessary to be able to replace those things, that's really, as far as roadside repairs, about as far as you need to go. Of course, this is a little bit different. Everybody has their own needs. I carry a much larger toolkit than that in my truck, but I spent time as a mechanic. I'm able to do a little bit more, on the side of the road than what most people can anyway. While we're on the subject of belts, if you haven't replaced the serpentine belt on your car, right now would be a wonderful time to do that. Not necessarily because you need it to be replaced, but because now you've got that spare that you can keep in the trunk or under the back seat, or if your belt is brand new, just go ahead and throw the new one back there. That way you'll have it. Nothing sucks worse than, being, you're driving down the road and here comes all the dash lights. You lose your power steering and then you realize, oh shit, I just broke my serpentine belt. Well, being able to jump out, throw one on, and 20 minutes you're headed down the road, good to go. Now, as far as actually being able to drive the vehicle, fuel, man. If you haven't noticed over the last few years, there have been a couple times in almost every part of the United States where the pumps weren't working, whether that be due to, power outages or whatever. Having at least enough fuel on hand to give yourself a full tank for each vehicle is what I would recommend. For me, I think the easiest way to store fuel is, as I'm recording this is January. This month, go buy one 5-gallon fuel can. I don't care what kind you buy. As far as storing fuel, I like the old steel. I think I've got an empty one here. The NATO, genuine, actual, real NATO jerry cans. I've got some videos on those if you want to go back and look at that. But NATO jerry cans is what I like for storing fuel in. They absolutely suck for using fuel though. The ones I like to use, let's see if I can reach it, are either this style. This is the no spill. They're just the easiest to use. They've got a flat portion right here, so they'll sit on top of a generator or whatever. And when the fuel level rises up to here, they automatically cut off. The best ones, which I'm sorry I don't have one in this building with me, are the ones made by VP, the VP Racing fuel jugs. Those are amazing. And they don't really cost any more than, your regular crappy fuel cans that you buy, at the store with all the dubers and gizmos and stuff on them. But anyway, buy one fuel can each month for a year and fill it up with non-ethanol, and that's important, non-ethanol fuel. Do that each month for 1 year. So 12 times 5, that's 60 gallons of fuel. And then the next year, you've numbered your cans 1 through 12. And in January, you take out number 1, dump it in your vehicle, refill it, and then you're good for another year. Let me dig around over here and I'm going to show you the fuel stabilizer that I like to use. Now this is a terrible example because this is actually leaked and I need to replace it. So, I'll write that down on the list. But Pri-G, P-R-I-G, or Pri-D for diesel. The absolute, bar none, best fuel stabilizer you will ever find. And that stuff will absolutely, I've got grease all over my hands now. That stuff will absolutely keep your fuel good for a full year. And keep in mind that this fuel isn't just for your car. More than likely, you're going to use it in your generator when the power goes out because, it holds, 3 to 5 gallons and that's going to last you around 8 hours. And then you're going to refill that from the stored fuel that you used for your normal vehicle, your bug out fuel or whatever you want to call it. Now that we've figured out how to make it go, what do we do if for some reason it decides to not go? Well, depending on the time of year, if it's, the middle of August and it's 112 degrees outside, it's going to be a lot different than if it's February and minus 15. So having the provisions in there to be able to, keep turn your vehicle into a shelter, keep you from freezing to death or keep you from dying from, heat stroke. You be your own, make your own decisions on what's best for that. A wool blanket, surplus wool blankets are pretty inexpensive. I keep the military modular sleep system. I keep one of those, a full set of the sleeping bags, 2 of them in my pickup, as well as a wool blanket. And I've always got cold weather stuff. I've always got a pair of bib overalls. I've always got a jacket, hat, gloves, and extras, hats and gloves and scarves for the kids. I just keep them in a small backpack and they stay in the truck year round. They never leave the truck. I've got another set of coveralls and stuff and, that I keep in the house that I wear on a, what I'm going to say daily basis, for when I'm out doing stuff. My wife, she doesn't quite keep that much stuff in her car, but there is, extra pairs of, warm winter socks and, what she calls pajama pants, the fleece kind, an extra jacket, gloves, hats, and things like that. In the summertime, like I said, all of that stuff stays in the car year round. So if it's in the middle of August, I'm still prepared for a blizzard. That way I don't forget to put it back in. But we do keep a case of water in both vehicles. It would be nice to have more than that, but these are the vehicles that we're driving back and forth to work every day. We've got to allow some room for living life in here too, They're the ones that we take to the grocery store, and so we can't necessarily have our cake and eat it too. But take a look at your vehicle and strike that balance between preparedness and paranoia and actually living and enjoying life as well. I'm not going to tell you to keep a gun permanently in the vehicle. If you're going to do so, you need to, this is very important, you need to be able to secure it some way to keep it from being stolen. That's a real thing. I'm sure we have all had a vehicle broke into in the past. If not, we know somebody close to us that has. And I certainly don't want some criminal getting my gun. That's not something I want to deal with. Let's talk a little bit, just a quick brushing on recovery gear. If we get stuck, can we get out? I keep a shovel, like a full-size shovel in my truck year round. Even like for snow and stuff. People like to try to, put a snow shovel, plastic, like what you use for your driveway. And those are great until you get like that, wet snow that compacts really easy, and then your plastic snow shovel won't even chip through it. Just a regular dirt digging shovel will dig through anything. It'll dig through dirt, mud, or whatever. Now, with that being said, with snow, the absolute best thing to get you out, and let's see if I've got one in this shed here. Yes, I do. Not the best example, but it will work. A hoe to allow you to, reach under there. I'm kind of limited on space in here, but reach under there and pull that snow out from under your vehicle that's got you high centered. Just a normal cheap garden hoe. Maybe cut a foot or so off the handle, or cut it down to fit in the trunk of the car, whatever you need to do. But you better bet if it comes a snow, a decent snow outside, of course in my truck I keep a full size, but don't fall. But I always keep a hoe, in the vehicle as well for, digging the snow out from under there. Jumper cables. The absolute best is obviously one of those lithium battery packs. If you don't have that, jumper cables are the next best option, which you need to have those anyway. If you're only going to get one, it needs to be the regular jumper cables, not only to help you out, but to help somebody else out too. It really sucks whenever you see, an 85-year-old grandmother in a parking lot somewhere that's got a dead battery and you can't do anything to help her. And remember, we're not just preparing for us, but we want to help other people out as well. But anyway, put some thought into your transportation, into reliable transportation, and do what you can. I mean, yes, it'd be awesome in a perfect world if we all had, everybody had a four-wheel drive, 3/4 ton, pickup or SUV, or, pick whatever vehicle you want that we could have as a designated preparedness vehicle. But the truth is, that's just not an option for most of us. It's certainly not an option for me. But put some thought into that. What can you do to absolutely ensure reliable transportation for you and your family? And if you don't have a vehicle, or you're in a position where you don't need a vehicle, or, just keep in mind that, a vehicle, and, specifically a pickup truck, is one of the, greatest ways to increase your independence and your own self-reliance, not only in emergency stuff, but just like when there's the dining room table that your wife absolutely falls in love with, that is free for somebody just to come pick it up. Having your own pickup to be able to do that is an amazing thing. Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here, but put some thought into that. And until next time, you guys be safe.